Hey everybody, welcome to Rich and Wellness. I'm Roddia Paul,
And I am Shola Cargill. Welcome back.
and we just want to thank our returning PGCPS family and those of you that may be tuning in for the first time. Thank you for dropping by. We hope you become a part of the family. We're just going to be continuing this week with our series on productivity. And this week's topic is on intrinsic motivation, which we thought was very important to end this series with because it's a very big part of all the things that we've been talking about. And it sort of goes back to everything we talked about with self care, with mindfulness, like everything begins with self, right? And so, with that being said, it's really important that we maintain, balance with our intrinsic motivation. So, we're going to go ahead and break down what intrinsic motivation is, how that looks for different people. But we just really want to start with talking about the balance of it, right? So, of course, motivation in itself is, used to help encourage us to continue to do something, and sometimes we get focused on the result of that and we're not balancing and thinking about the process of it. We need motivation at each step in the process, not just about the outcome we want, right? So that's why it's important to keep that balance and to just guide yourself along that process. And each step that may look different for you as you're at each step in the process. So before we get into that and how that may look, Shola, can you tell people how you would define it for yourself if you had to first?
Yeah, I mean, for me, intrinsic motivation is that inherent drive. It's that inner purpose. What is making me get up and say, okay, I'm going to show up today and do the best that I can, and when there's something that maybe requires a little bit more of my effort, my energy, how am I going to pull those resources that I need to show up for that? And that comes from that inner motivation, that intrinsic motivation. So for me, it can be just knowing that in the future, everything that I'm doing today is going to help shape how I want my tomorrow to look, and that may mean I require, saying that a couple times. So I'm like, keeping myself on track, but again, it's keeping myself on track, it's not me looking for anything else.
I love that focus that you just had on, self and internal, because that's really what it's all about. It's important to distinguish, that the intrinsic motivation is about the internal self, like that drive for self that you have to maintain to be able to get the outcome that you want. And in doing that, it's really about the intangible, right? So usually we're motivating ourselves with something intangible that benefits us. And that's really embedded, right, in the primary fuel. Like, what does that look like, Shell? Like, what is the primary fuel, that we use to get these external benefits of things?
Exactly. So again, that primary fuel is, what is that thing that is going to drive you, right? So we talked about this whole series, the importance of pouring into self, making sure that you are giving yourself the things that you need to keep going. So the primary benefit is the fact that you give yourself that energy, you give yourself that space, that time to take a break, you give yourself that time to organize, you give yourself that time to stay in alignment, with maybe your eating habits, maybe the water, we mentioned all of those things because that is the primary benefit, which will now allow you to be able to give to others. You're going to be able to pull from an abundant pot as opposed to something or from a source that's drained, from the part of you that is not really feeling like it, the part of you that is just, kind of moving slowly and not giving what you would call your all at that moment in time. So that primary benefit fuels the secondary. The secondary benefit is now the fact that you're able to, go play outside with your kids. It's the fact that you're able to, walk around, and you're able to, lay around with your family and, spend time with other people without it being too taxing.
And that's really important. Like without, whether you know it or not, but like really what you just talked about, Shola, was the fact that, our intrinsic motivation is separate from our extrinsic motivation, right? So one is about how we motivate self, and one is about how the people around us, our bosses, our friends, our family, even our children, the things that they do that motivate us, they're separate, right? So I think, that's a really big important thing that you just talked about, right? Because the intrinsic, I think, is something that we can always count on, right? That's always within us. We're always going to have like the thought of what our purpose is, the thought of like, oh, this makes me feel good. I feel well when I do this. We're always going to have that. That extrinsic, we may not always have people saying, good job, here's that raise, oh, it made me happy when you did that, expressing gratitude for the stuff that you're putting out into the world. We may not always have that, but we do always have that, that intrinsic. So what are some examples for you, like for internal and external versions of like motivation there?
So for me, the internal motivation again is, just it could be long term. The fact that, for instance, I am in school, I am pursuing my psychology degree so that I can be knowledgeable about different practices, different ways of working with people, different perspectives to see people from, so that I can show up and help them in their healing journeys, however that may look. So that overarching long term goal is what drives me, is what gives me that motivation, that internal motivation to keep going. Because nobody's coming to my door and saying, hey, Show, you got to get up. You got to do this for the people. Nobody's saying that. So that's me getting up every day and choosing to do that. And then an external now, for instance, can be the fact that, all right, I'm doing my work and I'm getting things in on time. Now I'm receiving grades that are pleasing to myself, but now I'm also in this mode of getting that reward, that external reward of doing a good job. That's also reaffirming, okay, you got this. This makes sense. You're understanding this. Keep going. So they're separate, but they're also very related, and I think that's important for people to understand, while having that external, that good job, somebody praising you and saying you're doing great is wonderful. There's also the other part of you looking at yourself and saying, okay, I'm doing good because I'm showing up as my best self. I'm showing up as my most authentic self every day, and I'm trying and I'm doing my best.
I love that. You just said two things that stood out to me. The first was, what you're in school for and why. And then the second was your focus on just being your best self. I feel like those are two really important things that are embedded, in intrinsic motivation, like knowing your why. If you have nothing else, when you know your why, that is such an encouraging and empowering thing. And then, in addition to that, having a focus on being your most authentic, full, well self will also be a way to empower you. Like we talked about, moment of vulnerability, y'all. We talked about yesterday, like we just don't have it. We don't have it today. It's a low day. We're not where we want to be, and it was just a hard day for us both, but we woke up and we showed up, for who we had to show up for, because we know our why. We love the work that we do. And even on days, where it's just like, oh, I'm just not feeling it today, I still love this work and I want to give my best and my most full self to the best of my ability that day, but still do, because we know our why, right? So that's really important, like to understand what your reason is for doing something, whether it be part of your career, whether it be on a personal, social, family, whatever level. Understand your reason why for doing that and hold on to that, because I think that helps to guide us intrinsically on days where we're not quite feeling motivated, if we go back to the reason why, right? So I think that that's really important and powerful that you gave those examples. Like I think I would agree. One, my purpose, my passion is a really big intrinsic motivator for me in various aspects of my life. Academically, career wise, socially. I tend to align with things that are connected to my purpose, and that keeps me intrinsically motivated. You see how stuff just connects like that. And then also too externally, like of course we love to hear like the work that we're doing is impactful, it's touching people, we're empowering people, stuff like that keeps us going, even if it's just one person that's like, wow, what you said really encouraged me. Like that's enough to keep you motivated. So I think they're definitely, like you said, interconnected. But that intrinsic is so powerful, and honestly, a little bit more important than the extrinsic. Because a lot of times, like you said, no one's saying anything. You're going hard, and no one notices. No one's saying anything. And so, if that's all we had, we wouldn't get anything done, right? So I love that you said that. What's the activity? What do we want to challenge them with, in honor of all the stuff we just talked about?
I mean, we laid it out. We laid it out. What is your reason why? Right? So take some time. Let's reflect. Let's make a list, right? What are your internal and your external motivators? So, your internal, what's your reason why? What are your passions? Like we shared, a big passion for us is being able to do our work, show up for our people, as well as giving to ourselves within that, right? So for us, that internal drive is what allows us to keep going. So, what is your internal drive? What are your passions? What is your purpose? Take some time, right? The intentions behind the things that you do. What is that? What does that look like? And then for the external, right? What are those other tangibles that you enjoy? Is it praise? Our words of affirmations, like getting into love languages a little bit, right? Are words of affirmations the thing that, makes you feel good? Or is it the raise? Is it a promotion? Is it a gift, a little token of appreciation? What are those external rewards that help you feel good? And again, go right back into giving you that moving force to keep going. So, I'm definitely excited to see these lists that are growing and these plans that are growing, because it's all connected, family. Like we keep saying it, it's about you, right? So don't be afraid. You can look back on the stuff that we did before to even get some ideas of what may go into those lists, right? So Roddia, take it away, love. What's next?
So really, I think it's important that that's the activity, because I think it's a skill that you can use for everything, right? So one, of course, create that chart to kind of see intrinsically what motivates me, externally what motivates me. But it can even be applied to different aspects of your life. If you're doing a certain task and it's like you just can't get it done, you're feeling unmotivated, make a list. Make a list of reasons why this task needs to be completed. Like what are you gaining, what's the benefit, and then reasons why you, like what is stopping you from doing that. And often you'll see the reasons why you should complete it are going to outweigh what's stopping you. A lot of the times, it's fear, it might be anxiety, it might just be the fact that you haven't been showing up for yourself and you're just feeling low energy that day. So check in with yourself if that's what it turns out to be. But usually you'll see my reason why for doing it usually outweighs, why I don't feel like doing it or why I don't have the energy to do it today. And you're able to get it done. I mean, it's empowering, it's encouraging. It takes back your control over your tasks when you make these lists, when you empower yourself to continue, and you figure out for yourself, what empowers you to do so. So we really hope that you do that list, or you keep it and put it in your little tool belt that we've been working on, because honestly, it's so empowering to understand what motivates you, because then when you get stuck, you can lean back on that, right? So this is the last talk that we have in this series. And then we're going to be starting with 2 brand new series coming up in February and March. So we're going to be dropping the calendar for that next week. But we want to thank you all for being here with us through 3 series so far. Like family, our tool belt, our toolkit, everything wellness is growing. I'm growing as I'm doing this with you. I'm learning and talking to myself as we talk to you. Um, so we just wanted to thank you so much for tuning in with us each week, every Wednesday. Is there anything you want to say, Shola?
Thank you. Thank you for allowing us to share on this journey. And I mean, you hit it, Rodia. This toolkit and this toolbox is going to keep growing. And we just appreciate the opportunity to share it with you because we're also growing as well. So we're all in this together, family. It's one. And we are excited. Stay tuned for next week.
All right, so we'll see you guys same time, same place next Wednesday. Bye.